Okay. All righty. Ready?
Ready.
Okay. Hey, Becky. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, Cheryl. It's always so good to talk to you.
I know. So good to talk to you too. And I was so excited to have you back on because we met for the first time face to face. What was that? Like I don't know, 3 weeks ago, a month ago.
Yeah. Yep.
And you were talking about talks that you're going to be giving in the next month about Christmas and cultivating joy. And I was like, you got to come back on the third time.
Yeah.
and talk about cultivating joy this Christmas season. And we're going into Thanksgiving next week. And I just thought we need this message. We need, just focus on those things that really matter. I need it. So, so tell me, like, how are you? I know you just got off a plane came in from the UK, seeing your daughter. How was that?
It was amazing. My daughter, who recently got married, moved to the UK for a year with her husband. And I just felt like I wanted to go. We're going to go in the summer as a family to visit, but I wanted to go and just see where they buy their groceries and where they live and just be able to connect more. You know, being a mom, it was hard for me to not be able to go see her. And then my sister was able to come at the last minute. Her passport arrived and she was able to get a ticket and come with me. So we had the time of our lives. We had so much fun.
Oh my gosh. What did you do?
They live in Newcastle, which is up by Scotland. So we actually did 2-day trips. We took a trip to Scotland, to Edinburgh, and saw a castle there. And it's just, you feel like you're in a movie or a dream. It's just amazing. And then we went to York, which is a very beautiful city. And I just love it. Everything is so old. The buildings are so old, and they don't tear them down and build something new. They just keep the old and kind of build around it. And it's just beautiful. Everywhere you go, it's just this history. And, so of course we ate a lot of good food and just had so much fun with just being able to be together and kind of explore.
Wow. That's so awesome that you got to go and spend time. And how was it? They're newlyweds. Was that different? Like seeing her married and.
It is different. I had a moment, my sister and I were walking behind Kate and Steve, and it was just this moment where, her feet were kind of hurting. She's a nurse, so she's just going to start working. And I was telling her, you need to get some better shoes or whatever. And then her and Steve were talking about, well, we need to order you that. And it was like a silly moment, but for me, it was like, I'm not the one that's going to buy these shoes for her. This is it was, you know what I mean? It's just their, not that I've been buying her shoes because she's an adult, but you know what I'm saying? It was just like, they're living their own life now. And I was visiting and just kind of seeing the traditions that they're making. They have fish on Sundays. They go to the market and they get fish, and they have fish on Sundays after they go to church and go to the market. And I just love that. I just love seeing them create their own family, their own traditions, and being able to visit. And it's a different kind of relationship, but I really love it. It's really cool to see.
Wow. Yeah. And just seeing her be married to him and, and they're making their little life together, the sweetness of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for coming on because I know you have jet lag.
A little bit, but no, it's good. I'm so happy to talk with you. And I have some of this that's just been sort of, I've been thinking about it for about a month. And like you said, you need it. I feel like I need this too. I think joy is something that's different than happiness, because I think happiness, we love to feel happy. And we have moments where we feel happy, but it's usually because everything around us is going really well, or the circumstances are perfect and we have these moments of feeling happy. But joy is really different. It's something that I think we cultivate. We're intentional about it. We can feel joy and experience joy even if we're going through difficult times, or even if even in sorrow, you know. So that's something that I need to cultivate too. So it's very rich to just read through the Christmas story, because most of the talks I'm doing are either in churches, or I'm doing a women's holiday event speaking there, or for moms groups. So I'm looking through the Christmas story and just being reminded of all of the joy that runs throughout, you know, the Christmas story in scripture, and then trying to see how that applies to me and where I can cultivate joy.
I love that. Well, and I think you're like me. We write what we need as
Yeah.
well. You know, it's not like we're coming from this place of I'm up here, you know, speaking. It's like these are things that we're always working on. It doesn't like one day we snap our fingers and we have this joy that we're just, you know, we finally figured it out. It's a choice.
Yeah.
It is a choice. So let's dig into this. What do you think? Maybe we start with what do you think gets in the way? And we're specifically talking about more about the Christmas season, but what do you think for you gets in the way of joy?
For me personally, I think like my calendar is already full. So if I'm not intentional to kind of like just keep an eye out and look at everything I'm saying yes to and everything that's going on my calendar, that's something that right away I'll start to feel overwhelmed, because I'm overscheduling myself, or I'm overcommitting to things, or I'm overspending and I'm not paying attention. And then, you know, that can cause stress. I also feel um, family relationships can be tricky. So my mom passed away 8 years ago, and we can talk more about loss and kind of handling the holidays if you're grieving a loss in a little bit too. But every year is hard in some ways, and every year is different. And this year hit me really hard. Her birthday was in October. And I just said to my husband, you know, I miss her so much, but I miss the way our family used to be, because she was sort of like the one that brought everybody together. And now that she's not here, it's like it's really hard for my siblings and I to always figure out how to do that, because there's complications in the relationships, and you know, like most families have. So it's a double loss in a way of missing her, and then the way that has changed our family. So those are some of the things. I also just did a little reading, and I found this study that I thought was really interesting. It was done in 2019. So right before COVID hit. So then you add COVID, and it's so many other layers of stress that we feel. But it was 2,000 adults that were surveyed, and 77% of them said they have a really hard time relaxing during the holidays, and usually end up feeling more stressed and worn down than ever.
Wow.
And the majority, 56%, said that the extra financial strain brought on by the holidays is their biggest source of anxiety. So that's a big thing. After that, it was finding the right gifts for everybody, stressful family events, and then all of the tasks of putting up decorations, shopping, cooking, all of those things just added to our already busy schedules. And overall, 88% of the respondents said they felt the holidays are the most stressful time of the year.
I was really surprised by that. And then didn't they say they'd rather stand in line at the DMV or something like that? And I was like, wow. I mean,
Yeah,
did that
2 in 5
surprise
said
you?
that they would rather stand in line at the DMV, or 1 in 5 said they would rather sit on a long plane ride beside a crying child, which really for me, because we left on Monday to fly back, and we were delayed an hour and a half sitting on the plane. They had to unload all the bags and reload them. It was a security issue, and there was a baby that cried for an hour and a half until the plane took off. So when I read that again, I was like, I don't know that I would want to do that again, but I think it just speaks to the level of, and I know people who they dread this time of the year because of how hectic everything is, but I think also some of the loss that they've had and some of the pain that gets stirred up. I've heard people say that, you know, when things are great in your life, where you've had something really amazing that you've celebrated, the holidays are even sweeter, But when you've had something difficult, the holidays can be even more, that pain can be even more pronounced, you know. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
emotions are really heightened, whether it's feeling really happy and excited or whether it's, you know, some anxiety or loss or whatever it might be.
And I wonder, as you're saying that, if there's also this feeling of I'm supposed to be happy, I'm supposed to be joyful, it's supposed to look a certain way, and we have these expectations, and it's like the Norman
Norman Rockwell.
Norman Rockwell. I feel like I've been getting caught in like tongue twisters lately. You know, like the picture. And
Yeah,
it's like, oh, everything's warm and cozy and everybody's happy,
yeah,
sitting around and everybody gets along and there's no sibling fighting.
right.
And it's like this. And I don't know. For me, I still have those visions of like what it's supposed to look like. And
Yeah,
then if it's not, it's like a letdown. So
yeah.
we have to manage our expectations.
Expectations, yeah. And the comparison of looking around. I was thinking about Christmas cards and what Christmas cards
Uh,
look like now. Because back, you know, years and years ago, I haven't researched it, but I think Christmas cards used to be a smaller Christmas list of people that you would send them to, and they were handwritten cards. People didn't even put pictures in them, you know, and then it kind of turned into, you know, including pictures. And now most of us just send a picture. And what are we looking for? We're looking for the best pictures that we can find from the year. And, you know, that's sort of the way that it has become. But I feel sometimes like it's just become another Instagram type post that we send out at
I
Christmas.
know.
You
I'm
know?
so glad that you said that because now you get them on Snap. Is it Snapfish? There's a couple of them.
Yeah.
It's number one, it's so expensive. I
It,
haven't done it in a
yeah.
couple of years.
Yeah.
Number two, I can't get all my family together. I would, you know, now that they're living in different states and everything. And then I'm like beating myself up about that. Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with my family that we're not all together? Then we're going to be all together for Thanksgiving. Then I'm like, should I get a photographer? Should I have him come? And then I'm like, no, just have your sister-in-law take the picture. No, it won't look professional enough. We're going to have
Yeah.
matching shirts.
Yeah.
And, you know, we got to have the outfit and everybody has to be positioned a certain way. And, you know, all that pressure over a Christmas card picture. You know,
Yeah.
we used to just put a Kodak picture. Now they look so professional. Not that
Oh
anything
yeah.
wrong with that, but I'm like, oh, I can't do that. You
Yeah.
know, like that just feels, and that's not true. I can't do it. Of course, I could do it if I
Yeah.
wanted to do it. But I think one of the reasons I don't do it is exactly what you're saying, because it's
Yeah.
not going to be good enough.
Yeah. Yes.
So, so how many other areas are we bringing that pressure, you know, of not good enough?
Yeah. Well, and I've even had the thought, because last year was such a letdown, you know, like we canceled our Thanksgiving, we always host. Um, I did all my shopping online, so I wasn't even out and about enjoying being out at Christmas time and seeing the stores decorated. It was just such a isolating, difficult Christmas. So I've even had the thought this year, like, I really want to make it like, I want to try to compensate for what we missed out on last year and make this year like even better. Or just, I catch myself thinking these things. So one of the things that I have this word in my head to resist. And so, like, for me personally, I'm trying to resist the pull to impress others. So anything that I might end up doing just to sort of impress other people, I'm trying to like catch myself.
Oh, I love that. So what would be an area you would want to impress somebody?
Um, it could be with holiday baking. I used to bake a ton of cookies. My mom always did that. She didn't do it to impress people, but you know, I'm learning to just ask myself the questions like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing these traditions? Why am I buying more decorations when I have so many and I really don't need more? Because I want my house to look like my neighbor's house, or you know what I mean? Like, it's that I'm trying to get to the motive, I guess, underneath why am I wanting to do this.
I love that. I just have to interject. I almost bought the cutest little tree at Target. It was so cute because the one I have looks all ratty, and it's just one you sit on a desk. And I'm like, oh, that would make my daughter so happy when she comes home from college to have this cute little tree, and it's all colorful and it's got little different colored balls on it.
Yeah.
And I look and it's like $25. I'm like, why? But it's because she'll be happier to be home.
Yeah. And even if you say that, I want to defend that because it's so fun. It's so fun to just go and just buy new stuff. And so it's not that that's all bad.
Yeah.
But I think what you did is catching yourself and saying like, why? Because I certainly do not need more decorations. I don't. It's so funny. We've had the same Christmas lights and our kids they really want us to put the lights on the house. My husband does not like doing it. But they're so old. So every year we put them on and they're just these round bulbs. And our kids always are like, why can't we get like the icicle lights or like the new lights? And we're like, these still work and we like them. And so every year more and more bulbs are going out. We can't even replace them because they're so old. And last year when we were putting them up, I felt how hot they were. And I thought, this is a fire hazard now. I think we just need to throw these in the garbage because they're so old. But I've been so stubborn to buy new lights just because I felt like, why do we need to get rid of the old ones? But I do feel that, especially if I go shopping, it's like you just want to buy everything new and kind of just keep adding to what you already have. So I'm just checking my own motives because sometimes it does come back to comparing what my house looks like or what, things look like compared to what other people have. And then watching the overspending, overcommitting, overscheduling, I feel like those are the things that lead to me feeling overwhelmed. So really being intentional to figure out what my budget is, figure out what my calendar looks like, and make sure I'm not pushing it to the limit in every way possible, because that, I think, sucks the joy out of the holiday more than anything else, is just stretching ourselves so thin in so many different ways that it's not even enjoyable. All of it just feels like work. And then in January, we have a really big bill to pay, starting the new year is just. So.
How do you discern what you say yes to and what you say no to?
That's a great question. I have been thinking about that because I think that goes back to the intentionality, because if we don't ask that question, then we end up saying yes to stuff that maybe we feel like we should say yes to, but we really don't want to, or we say no to stuff that we really would like to do, but now we don't have the time or the money or the availability to do it. So I think we have to even back it up even more and really think about what is my goal for the holiday. Like I had one mom, because I asked moms to weigh in and kind of share with me some of the things that they were stressed about or what their focus is on during the holidays. And one woman said, and I really loved this, she said, there's tricky relationships in her family. So she said, longing for family time and good relationships is what causes me stress. I really want that, and I want to try to create that. So she said, my focus has been on creating a happy mood that celebrates Jesus's birth, not making everything picture perfect. So relationships come before deadlines generally. And I thought that was really just the fact that she has almost like a mission statement or like a goal, like this is what is important. Her faith is important. She wants to center it around the birth of Jesus. She wants to make time for relationships. So I think if we can kind of nail down what our goal would be for me, similar to her, I want to keep it focused on Christ. I want to have these relationships and connect with people in meaningful ways. So,
if
I
love that.
Yeah.
Creating a vision. Like I think of it like, what's my vision going to be going in and how am I going to show up?
Yeah.
Like, who do I want to be as I go into the Christmas season?
Yeah. And if there's really part of that, maybe one of my goals is also that I want to stay on budget, or I want to make sure that I have a day each week where I don't have anything scheduled, so I can just be at home and stay in my pajamas, if you're not working every day, and wrap presents, or just like be able to enjoy the season and not be running it. So just blocking out time where you say, I'm not going to put anything on this day because I need to have a day to just sort of get it organized and just do the things that I need to do. But I think we have to start with what we want it to look like. But then at the same time, hold our expectations loosely, because like you said, it never turns out exactly the way that you want it to, So to be flexible too.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that we don't, as you were saying that, we often don't ask ourselves, like, what do we really want to do and what don't we want to do? And paying attention to that voice. Like, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to make those cookies? Am I doing it because I think I should?
Yeah.
Or can I make this fun for myself?
Yeah.
Because I think we put a lot of guilt on ourselves too. Like with your mom making the cookies, I'm imagining that, it could almost be like you should, because that's keeping her memory alive. So if I don't do it, then I'm letting her down in a way,
That's so true, because she has a sugar cookie recipe and there's so much work. And I remember doing it with her, and and I don't make them every year, but the years I don't make them, after like in January, when I'm putting all my recipes away, I do feel like a tinge of guilt or regret, like I didn't even make the sugar cookies, and it's unnecessary. Like that's another thing the study said, is that a lot of people are unnecessarily pressuring themselves to produce the perfect holiday, and just so it's okay and I think when we look at traditions and we look at the things that we do, I really think it's a good idea to just scale down and look at, is this really important would my kids even notice if we didn't do this? I've done that with Easter and Halloween the last several years, because I stopped doing Easter eggs, because nobody really seemed to have a lot of fun coloring Easter eggs. It just nobody ever even asked me about it. I just quit doing it. And nobody was like, hey, we didn't color Easter eggs this year. Nobody noticed. So there may be some traditions that you're just doing that nobody really cares about, but what we think it's like, we have to do this,
Yeah. I think that's a great point. And I would have moms, when I was leading groups, write down like a bucket list of things that would be fun for them to do, like things that they really wanted to do over the Christmas holidays, and even like schedule it or plan it so you actually do it. Yeah. But also, what do your kids really love to do? Like, what do they want to do? Because especially with, tweens and teens, they can drag their feet around things, but we don't even maybe ask them, like, what would you love to do? What would be fun for you to do with the family?
Yeah, that is such a great point. I think even if we can write down all of the things that we, in a perfect world, would like to do, and then as a family look at the list and ask our teens and tweens, what are your favorite things on this list? If we can't do all of them, what is most important to you? And to see what they think too.
Yeah. What are some of your traditions or things that you love to do?
I love Christmas caroling. My kids have never really enjoyed that, but we've done that some years with friends.
You have? I love that, because that's like a dying, I don't know.
It's like, what? We're going to go from house to house and sing. I mean, it's I grew up doing that.
I did too. We did it with the choir in high school, and we went all around, and people brought us hot chocolate, and it was
it's almost like they're waiting for you and expecting. Yeah.
It was like out of a movie. Now
I know. Yeah.
I love that you do that.
Yeah, we always like to go somewhere and look at lights. So, years ago, we would go every year into Chicago and just kind of walk around and look at the lights. Or if last year we just kind of looked, because it was more like driving through neighborhoods, but we found a neighborhood that was, pretty well known for their great light displays. So we just kind of got in the car and drove, but we like to look at lights. And then for Christmas Eve, we always open pajamas. And so that's like a thing that my kids every single year, they love that. We go to church and then we have fondue. And the fondue is like,
Ooh.
we do that every year. It's a slow meal and everyone is just in the kitchen for like 3 or 4 hours. Like everyone's helping to prepare it. And then it's just a slow. And the joke in our family is that by the time we get done with the cheese, and then we have different meats and sauces and veggies and stuff, we're so full we never want the chocolate fondue. And our youngest daughter Brenna just every single year just is so upset that we're all like too full to do the chocolate. So we really try to make room for the chocolate, but usually we end up doing it like the next day or something. But
I
traditions
love
like
that.
that are important.
Yeah, I love that you do that every Christmas Eve, that they know, and that's something that they look forward to.
Yeah.
We
And
play a lot of board games.
yeah, yeah. It's such a great time to play cards. We love to play cards in our family. So when, the girls come home from college and we're all together, we do a lot of playing playing cards mostly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun too.
And then
That's
the
fun.
other thing with that, I think, is like when we talk about Christmases that are different, whether it's loss, whether it's and if you have experienced a loss in the last couple of years, there's definitely some things that we can talk about that can help just with how do we navigate that as a family. But even if it's something just like, my oldest daughter moving away, I was watching her as she's trying to think about the holidays, being away. She's kind of homesick. Thanksgiving is the biggest holiday in our family. All of the extended family gets together and we have a blast. And because we're coming from out of town, we stay together for 4 days. So it's just so much fun. So she is so sad to miss that. It's her favorite
Oh,
holiday. But I was really proud of her because she said, I think it's going to be too hard for me to just be home that day and try to like make a turkey dinner for me and Steve. So she is doing a turkey dinner the weekend before. Her cousin's coming to visit and they're going to do that. But they booked a trip to Poland and they're going to go away for 5 days and just do something completely different because she said, I feel like that's just going to be better to just do something totally different. And I think that can also be a great idea if you're just feeling dread going into the holidays because something is different or not everybody is there and you're just kind of feeling like it's going to be sad. Think about, well, maybe you need to mix it up. Maybe you need to drop a tradition that you always do because it's going to be painful maybe, and just think of something different. I know the year after my mom died, we went to the movies on Christmas and we had never ever done that before, but I just felt like I wanted to do something different on that day.
yeah. Yeah, that's really good. That's really good advice, to change it up. I remember one of my family members, they had gone through a divorce and they said it was so difficult, like the first 3 Christmases, because so many of the traditions had changed. It was just so different. She had to start different traditions.
Yeah.
And to think about what do you want that to look like? Because you can sit home and then like it would have been so different for your daughter and Steve, Kate, right? Kate.
Yeah, Kate and
Yeah,
Steve.
Kate and Steve, to sit and feel lonely with that turkey dinner between the two of them.
Yeah.
And that was really great that she thought that through and knew that wouldn't feel good. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what's going to bring you joy? Like,
Right.
that what's going to make you feel good?
Yeah.
So how have you navigated that with your mother being gone? You went to the movies the first year. You said that it's different now with your family not having her there,
Yeah.
and navigating that. How do you deal with that
Yeah. So
void?
some of what I'm about to share is what I learned going to a grief support group. I went to two actually different, really great grief support workshops, but this one was called Handling the Holidays After Loss. And it was a one-night workshop and it was just phenomenal. And one of the things they started by saying is to make a plan. So there can be this, it's really an avoidant behavior to just kind of be like, I know it's going to be hard. I don't want to think about it. And to just sort of think, I'm just going to let it unfold however it does. It's going to be awful no matter what I do. whether it's after a divorce or if there's been a death in the family or just anything that is making this feel hard. But to make a plan, because the more intentional that you can be, the more you can really create and cultivate joy throughout the season. So asking yourself, what do I want these days to look like? Like imagining, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, what do I want that day to look like? And then making a plan for that. We talked about traditions, maybe sometimes dropping some traditions, doing something different. Maybe it'll be the only year you take a trip and go someplace for the holidays, or maybe you'll decide that that's what you want to do every year, just to give yourself the freedom to change it up and do something different, and know that it's okay to say no. Sometimes I think when someone is hurting or they're grieving, their loved ones want to keep them busy and will be like, I don't want, they don't want you to be alone because they know that you're sad. So they want you to come to all of the family gatherings. But if you really don't feel up to it, to know that it's okay to say no and be able to express that and let them know, here's what I am going to do, but here, maybe I'll drive separately to the family gathering, because that way, if I need to leave, I can. And just make sure that you give yourself the freedom to be honest with people who may have great intentions and just are trying to help you not feel so sad. And then I think just to lean into the feelings and give yourself the space to feel it, like to do something meaningful, to remember. If it's someone that has passed away in your family, the first year after my mom died, the first couple of years, I hung up a stocking for her, and we wrote little notes, like the kids would do it too. If we were kind of feeling sad or whatever, we would write a little note and put it in the stocking.
I love that.
And then some of the other ideas that, the people at my table at this grief workshop had was donating in memory of that person. So I remember one woman, her dad had died, and she went and bought what she would have bought for her dad, a sweater or whatever it was, and she donated it to some organization, a brand new thing that she would have gotten for her dad. So, I mean, that could just make me cry now, but just doing something, and I think involving our kids, even at the ages that they're at, tweens and teens, figuring out where you can volunteer together and doing it as a family and talking about the legacy maybe that someone in your family has left, with service or love. Looking for ways to lighten your load. We talked about that. Like if Christmas cards are overwhelming, just don't send them out. Everybody will be okay if you don't get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, giving yourself the space to grieve and feel your feelings. But there's this idea of pre-grieving that is really great. Like if you're anxious about the Thanksgiving or the Christmas day and going to a family event, and you just feel like almost like you're afraid you're going to be ambushed by your feelings on that day, to take a time, maybe a couple days before, and just spend some time by yourself, put on Christmas music, like whatever. If you need to cry, if you like to write, you can journal some things, to take the time to just sit and feel what you're feeling. It kind of gives you a head start going into then the gathering that you're going to go to. Not that you won't cry again, but just making the space for you to feel what you're feeling. So those are some of the things that I have done over the last several years. And I will say, I mean, definitely with time, the intensity of the loss, I think, diminishes. So it's not as painful. But at the same time, it's now been 8 years since I've seen my mom. So there's this, that sadness is kind of always still there, but it's certainly not something that I dread anymore. I don't dread going into the holidays, but there's still ways for me to remember her and to give myself the space to feel when I do feel the sadness.
Yeah, that's good. Because I was thinking a lot of times we don't want to feel the sadness, or working with moms, they don't want to feel that, or they don't want to cry in front of anybody.
Yeah.
Like giving yourself permission that if you do cry, it's okay.
Yeah.
You cry because the person means so much to you, and that letting that out is all right. And feeling those feelings. So a lot of giving ourselves permission.
Yes.
To feel whatever we're feeling. And it doesn't mean that you're going to fall into the pit.
Yeah. Right. That's a fear. You think if I start crying, I'll never be able to stop. But Yeah, it's so important to let yourself feel what you're feeling.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think when I let myself feel, I was really having a hard day on Sunday and I was just not in a good place. And there was a group text chain that went around and I said, and somebody was like, what are you grateful for? They were trying to start the, what are you grateful for?
Yeah.
And I was just honest because these people that are close to me, I'm like, actually, I'm not doing so great today. So I'm not feeling very grateful.
Yeah.
And the friend called me and said, are you, what's going on? And I
Yeah.
cried. And it was a shift for me.
Yeah.
Now I know not everybody has that, but just even crying sometimes that can be such a release.
Yeah.
And I was amazed. I was like, I didn't need her to give me advice or tell me what to do or anything. I just needed to
Yeah.
let some of that air out. It was like releasing air from a balloon or something. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm okay. I can get on with my day. So
That's so
we
good.
need that permission.
Yeah. And to be able to reach out to somebody and let them know. I think that's a big part of it too, is to be able to be honest about where
Yeah,
we're at, even if we feel like it's not where we're supposed to be at, you know?
exactly. Yeah, I'm like, should
Yeah.
I tell the truth here?
Yeah.
Should I really tell the truth? Because there's a part of us, I think, that wants to hide that. But I was glad
Yeah.
that I did
Yeah.
because it was what was true for me in that moment.
Yeah. So
So,
that's, oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
well, you go ahead. You say what you're going to
I
say.
was going to say, so that's one of the ways, like we've talked about, I think a lot of the things that steal our joy or where we get stuck, but the way we cultivate joy, I think we talked about being intentional and looking at what do we want this next month to look like, and simplifying and just kind of scaling things down and even creating like a goal or some kind of a vision for what we want it to be. And then asking ourselves, with everything that we're saying yes to or no to, is this going to help me achieve this goal that I have? But the other thing that you just brought up is connection, authentic, meaningful connection. And I think sometimes we can be so task driven. So if we look at the holiday season as really just like I have to get all these things done. I have to shop, I have to get the food, I have to bake, I have to wrap the presents, decorate, all of that. Be looking for ways that you can do those things with someone else and connect over it. And like baking, I have a recipe from my friend Margie. It's her family recipe to make these pastries. They're kind of a pain to make. You roll out the dough and there's like a nut filling, and we always do it together because it's not fun to do by yourself. It's so much work, but we just set aside a day. We alternate between houses. We get our kids involved. If they're in the house, they come in and they help roll some. And it's now a tradition that's fun. We end up with a bunch of these delicious cookies, but we do it together. So
Oh,
even, now that we can get back to shopping in person, grabbing our kids and just, taking each one out and shopping with them or going and getting dessert. A tradition that one of my friends has that I think is so fun. I've never done it, but in her neighborhood, all of the women would set aside one day in December and they would spend the whole day together, alternate houses every year. They would have appetizers, watch Christmas movies, and wrap all of their presents together.
ooh, I
Isn't that
like
such a great
that.
idea? So it's taking something that usually I'm by myself at midnight, like wrapping presents alone, which is, it's not the worst thing, but I think that would be so fun if you have a group that you can do that with. So I think looking for, and then being able to be authentic, like what you said, to just put it out there and say, actually, you know what, this is not feeling like the most wonderful time of the year. And that connection is something I see in the Christmas story when I read through it again with Mary, after she's told that she's going to give birth to the
Mhm.
Savior. You think about that, like I don't think people believed her. I think that it was impossible. What she was saying was going to happen. And we read that she went to visit her relative. And I kind of wonder if it's like, she needed to go away because there was a situation that it was hard for the family. She goes to visit her relative, and when they see each other, there's this moment where we read in scripture that the baby in Elizabeth, who was John the Baptist, leapt for joy inside of her. And then Mary breaks into a song, and it's about rejoicing and joy. And I think it was such a gift that they had each other, because they both were experiencing a miracle. And to be able to have somebody that believes with you and um, reminds you of what is true and can walk through life's circumstances together, to have that kind of connection, I think is so beautiful. The relationship that they had, you know.
Yeah, I know. You just wonder. I'm like, oh, when she was breaking out in song, were they cooking together in the kitchen?
Probably.
You know, I'm like, what did that look like? I'm just sitting across from you and I break into song, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, how did that look, you know? But what I'm kind of taking away from everything that you're saying is not to be alone. You know, I think, and I think about when we're in our heads and we're alone in our heads, what a lonely place that is to be too.
Yeah.
And just being able to talk about like what's really going on with us with somebody that we feel close to. You know,
Yeah.
being, I mean, maybe Mary went in the beginning, she was talking about how this was hard. I mean,
Yeah.
we have no idea that she went there maybe for to take refuge.
Yeah.
And through her talking about what it, I mean, I have no idea, but what it was like for her, that then she was able to feel, you know, they had that connection, and then she's singing and she's
Yeah.
finding that joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they were together, and what, yeah, to just be with somebody that you, like
Yeah.
you said, making those pastries
Yeah.
with Margie.
Yeah. My friend
Yeah.
Margie.
Yeah. Yeah, that was how special. I really like that you're saying that, because I'm thinking, what can I do that I can bring more of that into my, you know, into Christmas, bring people together more.
Yeah. And I think it can feel like a risk sometimes when I talk to moms about friendship and cultivating friendships. Sometimes moms will say, like, I don't really have close friends. I don't really have people that I feel like, I'm really close with. And I think, especially over the last year and a half, there's been so many of us have felt isolated, and just really that feeling of being alone has been magnified, I think, for so many. But I think if we remember that, we also can then offer that to someone else. So if you take a risk and you invite someone to come and bake cookies with you, even if you're not best friends, and you spend some time together, you're giving that person an opportunity to maybe experience friendship as well. But it is risky and it's not easy to do, but it's so much better to be able to cultivate those kinds of friendships and not go through life
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah. I'm so happy that you said that, because as you were sharing about, you know, women getting together in the neighborhood and they're all wrapping presents, I was like, wah, wah, wah. Like
Yeah.
I don't, you know, like I don't have that, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and now the kids are older and they're not in school, and that maybe used to be, you know, the cookie exchanges, and I don't have that anymore. But then I'm like, but Cheryl, what do you have? You do have friends. They live all different places. You know, they live in different towns around here where I live.
Yeah.
I can have them over. You know,
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
what do we have that we can focus on rather than focusing on what we don't have?
Yes.
What do we have? You
Yeah.
know, and because it doesn't have to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And then reaching out to somebody and knowing that to be invited over to maybe bake cookies, like, I mean, how fun is that? Or have a cup of coffee even, you know?
Yes.
That means a lot. I mean, we like to be invited to things.
Yeah.
I tend to be a person that kind of waits historically, that waits to be invited,
Yeah.
versus I have friends that are so good at that. Like they generate a lot, and they invite people to, you know, and to things. And I so appreciate that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be more like that. You know, I'm
Yeah.
going to generate more and reach out more. And I have been doing that more, and it's so much more satisfying.
Yeah. I love what you said about, instead of focusing on what we don't have, thinking about what we do have. And I just thought, really, that one of the things that can make this holiday season so rich is when we take both Thanksgiving leading into Christmas. I feel like Thanksgiving sets us up really well to head into December, because we are focusing on what we're grateful for, what we do have. So I think contentment is another thing that will cultivate joy as we head into December, if we can carry that on, being thankful for what we do have. And like you said, well, what can I do? Like instead of waiting to be invited, and maybe you hate baking, maybe you're listening to this thinking like, I do not want to bake. You don't have to bake, you can do something else. You can do, there's, endless possibilities for what you can do to just foster connection with another person and do something that you enjoy. So
Yeah.
like that you're talking about you reaching out more and trying to do that, because your tendency is to kind of wait and be invited, but we can be proactive too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to do that. This is so good, setting it up, and to all of our listeners to really be intentional, like write it down, say it out loud,
Yeah.
put it on the calendar, invite somebody now.
Yeah.
To come over. Yeah.
Or even a task like doing your Christmas cards. If you are sending out Christmas cards, you have to address all of those and sit at the table. Like, why not go to your friend's house and do that together? I mean, thinking of things that we have to do anyway, and then looking for opportunities to do those things with someone else and to just be together as much as what we can. I think.
I just love that, Becky. So
Yeah.
I have to ask you, as we get ready to close, how are you going to keep this Christmas fresh, and like, how are you going to celebrate it around Jesus's birth? To keep it fresh, because sometimes I get a little stale. I'll try different devotions, like what do you do? We used to have a little baby Jesus, and we would move him around the house, in the so he would come, he would sleep in his, in the manger bed when Christmas would like appear.
Yeah.
I could do that with my grandkids. Maybe I'll do that. Like, where's baby Jesus? Find baby Jesus.
That's so cute.
Some
Our
people
daughter
do
was
that.
really, she loved Mary, our daughter Claire. And we had a Fisher Price, like away in the manger kind of little people thing. And she carried Mary with her everywhere. And I would let her take Mary, and I shouldn't have, because she lost it one day. And then we don't have Mary. So we put little different people, we put different people, in place of Mary.
Poor Mary.
Yeah.
Missing.
Yeah. But I mean, to answer your question, I think what I'm really trying to do this year is just, I'm so sorry. Trying to let go of expectations of the way, because everything is going to be so different this year, with my daughter being gone, and we have some out of town company coming in the end of December. And we're not hosting Thanksgiving this year. We're traveling and going to my sister's instead. So I think just trying to let go of the expectations of what I would like things to be like, or with maybe the way that I wish that they could be. And I'm just reading through the Christmas story like over and over again. And just every time I read it, something different jumps out at me. So I'm reading in Luke chapter 2, or Luke chapter 1 is where it really starts. But I'm seeing themes of do not be afraid. Every time the angel Gabriel shows up to give anybody a message, he always starts with that, probably because it's terrifying to see an angelic being like in front of you. But I think also just because it's our human tendency to just be afraid and to be anxious. So, and that spills over into so many areas, where the anxiety could be something I'm really worried about, a loved one, or it could be just worrying that I'm going to let people down, or what are people's expectations of me, or all of those things. And then the other thing I see with Mary is surrender. I just see her surrendering everything and just focusing in on the hope.
Yeah.
What Christmas really was, that first Christmas of Christ coming. So looking for ways that we can, I'm going to experience that a lot as I'm speaking, and just this message sort of like becomes alive in me, I feel like. But with my family, I think just trying to simplify and just focus on being together. But I know what you mean about it. It can become stale, I know what you mean about that, because it becomes traditional, and then every year we kind of are doing the same things. So I think it has to be something that happens in our heart, where we position ourselves in such a way that we are focused on this, and
You're helping me because you know what? Maybe I will go back to Target and get that tree because I have these really cute ornaments, and I know you were interviewed on Family Life today, and
Yeah.
I think they're from Family Life, and they're gosh, I bought them like 20 years ago, but each ornament has a little verse on it, and each day you pick a verse and you hang it on the tree.
Oh, I love that.
And maybe I'll get that, and that can be the Jesus tree, like how can because I like doing little activities like that. So
Yeah.
kind of finding out what makes things, what about the Christmas story? How do we bring it alive for ourselves?
Yeah.
And I remember when my kids were younger, I would try to get them to want to do it, and they didn't want to do it. And it was like, then I'd be so disappointed. And I'd try to get my husband to make them do it, and then they wouldn't want to do it.
Oh, I know. We've done
And then
that
I was
too.
like, just trash this. I bought, I'd be all discouraged. And then I'm like, no, you can do it for yourself too.
Yeah.
I mean, and the moms that are listening out there, your kids maybe aren't going to want to decorate the tree with you this year. I did you find that? Like they went
Oh,
through
yeah.
a phase, they didn't want to decorate it, and then I'd be decorating it by myself, and I'd be really lonely.
Yeah.
And I'd be like a martyr and feeling sorry for myself. Nobody wanted to decorate it.
Yeah.
And like, that's a great example of, I mean, it ended up, I rallied the troops and they came, but that's a good example of even like, hey, inviting a friend, you want to decorate the tree with me? Or, just like, how can we make it meaningful for ourselves as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's so good. I have to tell one last story. There was a mom yesterday, I was doing a Facebook Live, and I really felt for her. She was saying about presents and how her kids never like what she buys them. And how one of her kids even cried, and she said, and he had even asked me for the gift, and then he didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, how can we too set our kids up for success where we're maybe even asking them what they want and getting rather than, you know what I mean? Like making it, setting everybody up for success. Like I'm very specific with my family, like exactly what do you want? Tell me, show it to me, take a picture so that I know.
Link.
Yeah, send me a link, because I was always buying things and nobody liked it, and then I would be so disappointed.
Yeah.
And then she's like, and nobody buys me anything. And I said, I go to the store, sometimes I put it on hold.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
put it on hold at a store. You can do that.
Yeah, like this is what I do. But these are like little stores in my town.
Oh, that's
I'm like, okay, my gift is sitting there waiting for me. I can't go buy it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That seems to be a big deal with moms. Like, just how do we, and whatever that looks like. And we know it's not all about the gift, but I just had to speak to that because I just felt for that mom. And
that is a lot of pressure and it's very hard to buy gifts for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So also doing those things for ourselves, even if our families aren't going to come alongside. Yeah.
Yes.
Listen it. So any final words of encouragement for our listeners?
No, I love this conversation because I think it's got my wheels turning and it's making me like, I'm getting excited about heading into the holidays and just trying to kind of apply what we've talked about to simplify, to make sure that I'm staying on track with what the kind of experience that I want to have personally, like what you were saying, and then also with my family. So I think just taking the time to think about it and talk about it is such a big first step.
Yes, it is. It's great. And I thought, I want to go to Botanic Gardens light show this year. I'm going to hang up with Becky and make the reservations.
See, that's
every year.
Yeah.
It's sold out.
Oh, yeah.
It sells out, and I've always wanted to go. So I think I'll do that,
Yeah, that's perfect. That's the kind of thing that we need to do, is just like get it on the calendar, plan it, and then, make it happen. And then make sure to leave extra space on the calendar for nothing. Because so often the times that I appreciate the most often are times when we're just sitting around after dinner and we start playing a game or we start laughing or talking or whatever. There are moments that aren't even scheduled, but if we don't have that white space in our calendar to just sort of be and not have something that we have to clean up and get ready and go somewhere, then I think that's another way to experience joy that is not even scheduled or planned ahead of time. It just kind of happens.
I love that, because I do think that we tend to make a bigger deal out of things, and then maybe everybody doesn't want to go or whatever, but just like being together,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what we really remember
Mm-hmm.
the most. So,
Definitely.
yeah. Well, thanks, Becky, for coming on again.
Thank you.
And
It's always great to talk with you.
yeah, it's just great having you here. So I appreciate it. And Merry Christmas.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, same to you. Thank you.
Okay, I'll stop. That was great.